Hi, this is John again, the owner and developer of VectorDecks. In this tutorial, we're going to go over the step specifications, step rails info, and landing rails info options. Now, if you notice, both of these, the step rails and the landing rails controls, are all grayed out. You don't have access to them. That's because we have the steps Use Sundeck Info button checked. So all these parameters and all these controls are mirrored on VectorDecks frame tool, and the step is pulling all this information right from the VectorDecks frame settings. And that's really where you want these settings to be in control. That way, all the settings that you made within VectorDecks frame Sundeck rail settings, all these different parameters, and if you use rail object or put any center panels or make any changes, will be passed over to the steps. Now, if for some reason you don't desire the rails to be the same as the deck, you still have control over that. That's all you need to do is select a step again and click that Use Deck Info button off. And now when you go back to those step rails and landing rails options, all these controls are now available to you. A very important thing to note though, that with that Use Deck Info turned off, you're going to lose all the controls and the settings that the VectorDecks frame tool has. The rails types, the decking surface, the elevation, all that is not going to be passed over to the steps. Let me show you an example here. Let's go back to VectorDecks frame settings and let's change that rail. Let's give it a color. I'll make it a simple change. Let's make that whole finish pressure treated. Now when you click OK, all the rails on the Sundeck will get pressure treated, but the steps didn't receive that information because it had its Use Deck Info turned off. And not only with the rail, but also with any settings that you have in VectorDecks frame settings. I'll show you another quick example. Let's go to the Sundeck settings on the frame. And let's change that decking darker. Let's give it an amber color. And click OK. And you'll see now the deck changed. But again, the step has its Use Sundeck Info turned off. So it doesn't want to obey any changes. Now if you go ahead and click that on, it'll automatically pick up all the settings that the frame has. Now if you ever want to still make changes to the step and landing rails independent from the Sundeck frame, I went over all those different edit capabilities in a previous tutorial in the frame settings. You'll see in section 3 of my tutorials an area called Sundeck Rails Settings button. In those tutorials I cover in depth all the different kind of settings that you're going to have within the step specifications, step rails info and landings rails info. So I'm going to direct you to go back over there where all the instructions you need for these controls and parameters will be covered.